what motivates what I do. What is your main reason for wanting? I think one of the things that I would ask, is that something that you've ever thought about yet? The true confidence will put you in a place of being a servant leader.
Welcome to Rise Up For You TV. This is Lauren Sweeney, and I'm our Vice President and your host for this special podcast series on coaching. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an executive, or an emerging leader inside of an organization, this special edition podcast series is for you. We are talking with experts in the industry from our team about the necessity of being a good coach, what it takes, and how you can improve. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Dan Frutiger. He is one of our core leadership trainers and coaches, and he comes to us today with a wealth and years of experience in the HR industry, specifically around training and development. And we are excited to have him on the series today. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lauren. It's such a joy to be here with you. I appreciate it very much.
Fantastic. Well, I know that you went through our certification this past year and that you coach many of our clients from different industries and different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And I would love to start by asking you, what do you feel is one of the best things about being a coach? Like I see you on our coaching update meetings with our clients, and I can see the joy radiating out of you. But tell our listeners, like, what do you really enjoy about being a leadership coach?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's the fulfillment that I get in contributing to anyone's success, whether it's in a small way or a large way. That's really what motivates what I do. And it always has, but just having that sense of, hey, I'm doing what I was meant to do, and I was able to contribute to the betterment of someone else. And so that, I think, is really what moves me to, really keep doing what I'm doing.
I love that. So I want to take a coaching scenario for you, and I have a few ready for you that we've gotten from some of our audience questions on this special podcast series.
Nice.
And the first one has to do with career advancement. So we'll say that this question came from Brian, and Brian says, I'm working to move up in my career, but I feel stuck. I feel like I have hit not necessarily a glass ceiling, but I'm not getting those promotions. I'm getting passed over, and now it's kind of awkward. I'm training those that maybe I used to supervise who have gotten promoted above me. So a lot of things that are going on. I will pretend to be Brian if you'd like, and
Okay.
you could either role play with me a little bit.
Sure.
How would you coach Brian through this scenario?
So I think first and foremost is, asking you, Brian, what is your main reason for wanting to advance? If you're doing so well at what you're doing, what is your primary motivation? What is it that you're looking for by advancing in your career?
That's a great question, Dan. I think I would say that I want to advance in my career because there's just this feeling inside of me. Like if I could finally get promoted, I hate to say be happy. I'll finally maybe feel like I've arrived. It sounds kind of shallow, but I just feel like I'm not satisfied just staying at this level. There's something deeper or a hunger to advance in my career.
And I think that's a good thing. We should always have that drive for improvement, right? I think one of the things that I would ask, how much does the accomplishments and diplomas on the wall contribute to your self-confidence? Because those things are things to celebrate, we should be proud of, but they're not really sustainable, because what if you get promoted or get placed into a different role? And so I would probably encourage you to look more towards what makes you the person you are and how to be true to yourself regardless of what role you are in. Is that something that you've ever thought about yet?
I think that's a good point, Dan. As I'm looking behind myself, I'm seeing all my awards and certifications. And to your point, yes, none of them really did make me feel fulfilled. And so are you saying perhaps I'm chasing the wrong thing? Maybe nothing wrong with wanting to get promoted, but seeking my own sense of self-fulfillment or feeling of self-worth. You're right. I am kind of doing that. I guess I feel like, yes, I will be seen by my peers, even by my family as better or enough if I got that promotion.
Well, at our core, personally and professionally, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, and we all want to be valued. The challenge then is if that's not happening in our work environment, how do we find that fulfillment? And so that's where I would encourage you to find that fulfillment from inside. Be confident in the fact that you have certain competencies, you have initiative, you are great at project planning. Find those strengths and offer those wherever you go. What I have found is when I have a servant's mind, in other words, the true confidence will put you in a place of being a servant leader. A servant leader isn't a doormat. A servant leader empowers the people around them. And what you'll find is as you're empowering these people that you're already doing, I think what will happen organically is those that are in positions to promote us, they will actually see these qualities rather than just the accomplishments. And
Mm.
typically, our leaders are looking more for intrinsic motivations. They're looking for things on the inside that will carry over no matter what role they give us. And so I think the more that you focus on that self confidence to empower those around you, I'm pretty sure you're going to get noticed.
Ah, that really resonates, Dan. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to hear that.
Yeah, very good. Well, that was great, Dan. And we do
Thank you.
see this type of scenario quite often, the one that Brian
Thank you.
presented, where we are seeking the next promotion, the next degree to find our sense of fulfillment. And, we talk a lot about micro and macro confidence here at
Mhm.
Rise Up For You. And that really resonated, that coaching support that you gave, that our micro confidences are like those skills or those titles. And society says, oh, but that's who you are. And really, when we're hinging our level of fulfillment on our micro confidences, it goes up and down like a roller coaster
It does.
because we lose titles, we lose skills, we gain skills versus our macro, which is like, I really do feel enough because of who I am.
Yep. And that puts us in a position where no matter what role we're in life and, earning our, living, we can be a leader and be that example and be that light to others. And I think that's where it's that it factor that many of our superiors are actually looking for.
Such a good point. Well, speaking of those it factors, I want to bring you a second scenario.
Okay.
And we'll call our participant Amanda.
Okay.
So, Amanda has come to us for coaching, and we did our 24-point emotional intelligence assessment.
Mhm.
And Amanda has assessed herself. So, for those of you listening or watching, we do 24 different competencies of emotional intelligence on our own self evaluation. And then we have 5 to 7 peers come together and give us anonymous feedback, and we aggregate that data. So, in this coaching session, Dan, Amanda's coming to you and you've seen her results, and especially around active listening, empathy. She scored herself a 9, and the aggregate of her peers was about a 6.
Okay.
And Amanda doesn't really see this blind spot. In fact, she thinks that her peers were maybe out to get her. Maybe
Mhm.
one peer rated her like a 1, and that's why. Can you help Amanda kind of coach through that gap and talk to, influence her that the data really doesn't lie? So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's try that
All
scenario.
right. Well, hi, Amanda. I'm sure that this is kind of something that's a little difficult for you to reconcile right now. This isn't to tell you that you're failing, right? This is to tell you that there's area for growth. I mean, there's always room for improvement, right?
Yes, yes, but like
Eh,
Dan, my peers really don't know me. I know they gave me a
Uh,
6 average, but Bob over in accounting, I think he doesn't like me, and I think his scores brought everybody down. Really, if you look on the back end, I think you'd see everybody else gave me an 8 or a 9 too. I'm very empathetic. I'm an incredible listener. I mean, I barely talk at all. I just listen and listen and listen.
if that's true, one of the things that we have to understand is that the data is not going to lie. We aggregated that data. So it wasn't just one person, it was the average of all the people combined. And so a 1 from one person wouldn't bring it down to 3 points lower. It would just be a little fraction. And so we need to understand, and I think sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that maybe their perception isn't what we are trying to offer or who we're trying to be. But perception is the only thing we really have to work from. So rather than taking it personally, I would encourage you to take this as a indication, right? Just a general indication, it's not personal, that this is where they are at. Now, as a
Mhm.
leader, my job isn't to say, hey, this is who I am, you just got to deal with it. I call that lazy leadership. Today's leadership is okay, these are where they're at. How can I meet them where they're at and help them to go where we need to go? And so, as we're talking more and more about this, this is where I would encourage you to take notes with what we're talking about. We're going to come up with some action items for you because a big part of this active listening is also asking questions that are genuine, not just waiting our turn to speak. And it
Mm.
may not be that you intended to do that, but that may be their perception. And so by being more silent and asking more questions, we're showing genuine interest, and that perception can change. Does that resonate with you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that sometimes I can be a little judgmental. I really try to show empathy, and I
Yeah.
feel like I do listen, Dan. But to your point, I am kind of waiting my turn to speak.
Okay.
And so, what you're
Well,
saying about taking notes, maybe
uh-huh.
that would be helpful so I could
Yeah.
practice listening more.
Well, the fact that you just admitted that is huge, Amanda. That's a
Mm, thank
great
you.
step forward. So, tell you what, let's look into some very specific ways and specific things that we can say while we're listening. And
Mhm.
then as you ask questions, it's going to launch even more questions to dig deeper. And the more that we do those kinds of, questioning, it does a couple of things. One, it shows them that they're valued. We all want to be valued. We all want to be seen and heard. And the way that we interpret or perceive that is by being asked genuine questions and then taking those notes so that we can actually refer back to those answers that they give us. And as you do that, then it also helps you, right, Amanda, to actually have data, right, to refer to when you go into other meetings and other conversations. So it's a back and forth kind of empathy, but empathy to really be in another person's shoes, metaphorically, is to actually ask those genuine questions. So you're on the right track. I'm really proud of you for admitting that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, hopefully, when I take the assessment again, the data will have improved because
Yeah.
I'm really going to focus on it. And I know you told me in another coaching session that what I focus on can get improved. And
Oh,
so perhaps I could apply that in this situation.
sure can, and you will see improvement. I know you. It will.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Very good. Well, this is a common scenario, yes, that we face when
It
we're
is.
coaching individuals and especially with leaders. As you said, we all have blind spots. We all have areas where we can improve. And so by getting that aggregated peer feedback, it helps show us, okay, do we have an inaccurate assessment of ourselves?
Mhm.
And the goal is not to have everything be a 10. The goal is to have an accurate self-assessment. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
rate myself a 6, but the aggregate of my peers is
Yeah.
also a 6.
And we've also seen the opposite, right? Where we've seen what I would call a little bit of false humility, where it's kind of like, well, I'm a 3 on this, I know I need to work on it when they know darn well they've got it down. They're just trying to keep that humility factor in place. And it's like, when it comes to servant leadership, humility often is misunderstood. Humility is the same as, it's not that doormat situation again. Humility is simply power under control. And so we don't have to create a sense of humility. Just being who we are, it'll show.
I love that. Well, Dan, this has been fantastic having you on our Rise Up For You TV today, our special
Me
coaching
too.
edition.
I
I
enjoyed
would
it.
I would love to ask you kind of a closing question, and
Sure.
that is, what is one thing that you learned from going through our coaching and training certification?
Mhm.
Maybe about yourself, or maybe you've been in the industry a long time, so you came to us with a lot of experience and knowledge.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate, you're right, and I've worn many hats. And I think probably what I learned the most was that the more I got into our content and how carefully developed it has been and how it's constantly being adjusted and we're staying innovative, no matter what, those things really resonated in principles that I've tried to develop as well. And so it kind of gave words and it gave framework to many of the things that I've been looking for and have been maybe instinctively doing for many years. But now I can actually teach. And what I love about that is my heart's desire has always been to be more of a transformational leader. And in order to do that, I need to learn how I can train others how to train. And so by Rise Up For You not only resonating, but giving me those tools, it was an easy decision.
Oh, I love that. Well, you have two sayings that I know you got from some of your best mentors and leaders, and
Yeah.
I use them. So, will you tell the audience that's listening or watching today what are the two phrases that come up often that I find so helpful and heartwarming?
Oh my goodness.
And I have them. If you don't have them, there's
Well, if
Danisms,
you could
I would
remind
say.
me because I have several.
Well, my first favorite one is "I'm here to help you thrive."
Yes, yes. That
And
was one that late in years, I actually discovered somebody used it with me. And I realized that all these years in my professional life, I had never actually heard those words. And so now, after I heard it, I found myself using that a lot. Yeah.
you share this story, yes, of not having context and maybe getting some criticism from a previous supervisor.
Mhm.
And when the supervisor said, "Dan, I'm just here to help you thrive," and you tell this story of how it kind of melted you
It did.
into wanting that you had never felt such a wanting from a supervisor, and
Mhm.
how impactful that was. The second one you say often is "you're doing better than you think." Can you
Yes,
tell
that's
us
one of
the
my taglines.
context on that? Yeah.
And I do like to use that a lot because we are our worst critics, especially those of us that really do want to do our best. We tend to internally, we tend to be our worst critic in the sense that our human nature is to gravitate to our failures. And I think it's really important for people to understand that they really are probably doing much better than they realize and to find those wins. It's not arrogance to recognize when there's wins. That's actually a confidence. And so it's much like having that, gratitude journal, right? Well, make sure you include in that gratitude journal those things that you see in yourself that are improvements and that you're doing and accomplishing. Because if we don't, then what happens is we tend to burn out.
Mhm.
And so it's very important to make sure. So I've kind of taken on as my tagline to let people know, hey, you're doing better than you.
So good. Well, I'm glad we got to share those. Thank
Thank
you for joining us here today, Dan.
you. It's my
It's been such a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I wish
Oh,
you guys all the best, and I feel very honored to be part of this distinguished team.
amazing. We're so happy to have you. Well, thank you for listening or watching us today on this special coaching edition for Rise Up For You TV. And I want to make sure that you have taken our Power Up assessment. It is brand new, and it is a way that you can assess your organization or team in our four pillars. So, self confidence, emotional intelligence, transformative leadership, and influential communication. If you haven't taken it yet, please simply go to powerup.riseupforyou.com. I'll put it on the screen as well if you're watching. Make sure you take that assessment. You will get instant results that will help move the needle. Also, if you are looking to do our coaching and training certification after listening to some of the other coaches and trainers that we have on, please go to riseupforyou.com and click on Rise Certification. We would love to have you in our next one. This has been my pleasure to be your host today. I'll see you on the next episode.